Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, battling through laryngitis, but luckily Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, joins us. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Admiral, I got two questions for you. I'm going to throw them both at you and let you decide which one to take first. The first question is, with all these wars going on, with Putin and Ukraine, with Israel and Iran, Israel and Hezbollah, Israel and Hamas, China threatening Taiwan, what new lessons of war are we learning and what old lessons are we relearning? And then secondly, Nigeria. Now, Nigeria is the size of Texas plus another third of Texas, 237 million people. President's talking about a very good cause, saving the Christians from the jihadis. But, I mean, really, isn't that like a bigger mess than Vietnam? Your choice. Go with what you want to go with.
Let me go with of those two hard ones. I'll go with the first one first. The question of how do you deal with, look at all these different wars going on and figure out, where's the adaptation of warfare going? How fast is it moving? And the answer is we're learning a lot of lessons from Ukraine. Or the Ukrainians are learning a lot of lessons. The Russians are learning a lot of lessons. We and the Chinese are on the fringes learning lessons. But there's a lot being developed there. And I know it's people fixate on the drones, but there's other and the drones and the mine drones and the sea drones, and there's a lot. I've discussed those in the past, and I think there's a lot you can learn from that. But in addition, the utility that authoritarian states have found in using cruise ballistic and hypersonic missiles, and I'm thinking there about Russia, and then with minus the hypersonics, Iran. Against Israel, Russia against Ukraine. And, we have not, part of being in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years was that we took risk in our cruise missile defense and a little bit in our ballistic missile defense. As a result, we're not ready to defend ourselves where we're talking about forward station forces in Japan, in Europe, in Korea, or if we're talking about the homeland. And, that's why the president has kind of settled one of his big decisions was it's now called Golden Dome, but the idea of defending our homeland from this growing menace of long-range cruise, ballistic, and hypersonic missiles. So I think we've learned quite a bit in that from that fight in Russia and from the fight in Iran with Israel about those threats.
Do we have the ability to put into place effective defense in the 3 years and 3 months Donald Trump has left?
So look, here's what I say. The President Trump, you got to give him a lot of credit because every president since 9/11 has said Homeland defense is my number one issue. Very few have put the resources against it. And if you look at the Homeland, it's three things. The first is the border. I think we can agree the border is secure.
Yep.
And it was not before he took office. Number two, Homeland defense. He has said, I'm willing to spend, anywhere north of $125 billion to address this issue. That may not be enough, by the way. And he's also told the department, you need to think about space-based defense. You need to imagine this. Now, look, part of he also would like it done by fall of 2028. I'm not sure those two things can gel together. I think the best thing he can do is deliver a kick-butt space-based missile defense system that's enhanced by an underlayer of some terrestrial-based systems that is initially operational at the end of his administration and fully operational during the next president's administration. In other words, to do it right, it's going to take 5 or 7 years, unless Russ Vought has got $1 trillion you and I don't know about, in his back pocket. It really is going to take, I think, 5 to 7 years to get the defense that Donald Trump visualizes into play as a 5 to 7 year initiative. So that's number two. I'll just tell you, Hugh, number three, cyber. And that's actually where China's attacking us right now. That whole Volt Typhoon thing where they penetrated our critical infrastructures and put malware in, and we caught them. They're doing it everywhere, all the time, all at once. So we need to. There's the third arrow in his homeland defense has got to be getting at cyber, and I'm hoping that's what we see come over the next 6 months.
Well, I think I no longer own Palantir, so I can say this. I think Palantir is what's going to provide that to us, but and a couple other companies, but that's a wish against a need. So we'll just leave it at that. Talk to me about your initial thoughts about Nigeria. Are they? Did you have the reaction I did, which is great idea? I would love to help stop Boko Haram. I'm not sure we have the capacity to do that or the will to do that.
Yeah. So, it's unusual. This is the second time in the last few months we've heard this president talk in a way that sounds almost a little bit like regime change. And I don't think that's President Trump's calling card. So it does worry me a little bit. This could become uh, very readiness expand, painful, quick. Um, this is not, and it's not something I think you can do from, air power. Just drop a few weapons here and there and solve the problem. I mean, I know we know where some of Boko Haram is. I know we know how to get at some of this problem, but to get at all of this problem, you would probably have to have to truly do what the president kind of rhetorically said, which is hold them accountable and stop it, might take a footprint that no one is interested in. And by footprint, I
Well, I
mean
mean,
U.S. troops
yeah,
on the ground.
I agree, and it's again. I tell the audience, Nigeria's got 237 million people, and it's Texas plus another third of Texas. I don't even know where we'd start. Do you?
I don't. This is not Venezuela. Like, if you asked me or Admiral Stavridis or someone else to come up with a plan to to in a phased way, hold Maduro accountable until he flees, I could give you that strike plan. I'm confident it's being worked up, across the river here at the Pentagon. I can visualize that in a way that doesn't require U.S. occupation. I cannot do that for the exact reason you said. The geography of Nigeria, the size, the kind of like the heterogeneity of the religions, in the same battle space, in the same space. They haven't gone to each of their corners purely. There's large cities with mixed groups. I just don't. This would be an extremely complex, demanding, and resource intensive process, and I don't think the president's truly committed to that.
Now, Africa Command is a big command, and it's the fastest growing continent, and it's got so many different problems. Do we have any significant footprints outside of Djibouti on the continent?
We do have some. So Africa is large and expansive. You're right. Africa Command's actually pretty, as you were implying, they're kind of small. It has very few assigned forces and very few U.S. forward deployed areas. Djibouti being the exception, being a big one, and that really has more to do with CENTCOM than it has to do with AFRICOM. So no, we don't. And in Southern Africa, which is not Nigeria, in the southern part of the continent, we have almost no footprint. But in the eastern and western, we have small areas where we've had forces. We were driven out recently from a few of them by, Wagner Group. The remains of Wagner Group. If you remember from, a
Right.
Russian
Mali and
mercenary.
Niger, I think, right?
Yeah,
Mali.
that's right. And places where we and the French both had made significant investments to try to preserve our access to get at Al Qaeda and ISIS based groups in the continent. And we have very limited footprint now. And again, even if we had what we had prior to the coups, I don't think that would have been enough for what what he rhetorically said. Again, this has got to be rhetorical, Hugh, because
Maybe scare someone, but am I right that it's a Vietnam-sized commitment if you want to enter into a civil war between the North Boko Haram Islamists and the South Christian Western, it's bigger than Vietnam?
Well, and I would say it's Westmoreland's view of Vietnam, not McNamara's, right?
Okay.
So, yes, and that's just not in the cards. I mean, just we can't afford it. It'd be pulling us away from Asia again. It'd be pulling us away from the homeland. So the two things the president is talking about, Asia and the homeland, is not Africa. If Bridge, Colby, and others were to argue supporting Ukraine's a stretch, when what's Nigeria then? It's just a super stretch, right?
Yeah.
And again, Venezuela, I can visualize a solution to that. Nigeria, I cannot visualize a solution to.
And that's why we have you on, Admiral, because realism is good for everyone. I appreciate your taking the time. Admiral Mark Montgomery, follow him on X. And Mark C. Montgomery, follow the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. I'll be right back with more of my interview with Haviv Rettig Gur. Stay tuned.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to SalemNewsChannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.